Welcome to the Show Me the Way podcast. I am your host, Andrea Miller, alongside a dear, dear friend, Tammy Thompson, and we are so excited to bring this podcast to you. Show Me the Way podcast is a podcast dedicated to exploring the journeys of those who have faced adversity and found themselves on unexpected paths. We will have meaningful, thoughtful conversations about challenges we have faced and how we discovered and forged new direction. Prepare to be inspired and to uncover your own strength as you listen to relatable and motivating stories. Life has a way of twisting and turning, and we often need a fresh perspective to understand how to navigate. Let's show each other the way. In our first episode of the new year, we're excited to welcome our first male guest, my husband, Ryan Miller. This beautiful conversation dives into the experiences and relationships that shaped Ryan into the person he is today. Ryan reflects on moments from his younger years, including his time in college and the lasting brotherhood he formed through his fraternity. He also shares insights about our relationship and the unique experience of an only child gaining an extended family, including two sisters. An especially moving part of our discussion focuses on our son's diagnosis. Ryan offers his perspective, thought process, and how it reshaped his priorities and approach to life. He also speaks about his career journey, highlighting the stability and flexibility his job provided during critical times, and how finding a trusted workplace has allowed him to keep family at the forefront. Hearing Ryan's take on our partnership and life together was incredibly meaningful, and I believe his advice will resonate with all. We hope you enjoy this conversation and join us as we continue to grow this podcast by sharing stories from men and women alike. Happy New Year! Welcome back to the Show Me the Way podcast. We're so excited for 2025 and all of the stories the new year will bring. And to start things off this year, we are interviewing my husband, Ryan Miller. I told you that Tammy and I said eventually we would have men on. So we're really excited that Ryan is the first man to join us. And hopefully we'll continue to grow and allow more men to be on this podcast as well. So really excited that he's here. And who better to start things off than him? He's my partner and the guy who stands by me with all of my big ideas, including this podcast. And we've been married for 23 years, together for 26. We also met in college, although I've known Tammy just slightly longer. And in these 23 years, he can agree that I've had a lot of different directions I've wanted to go in. You've heard a little bit about it throughout this podcast, but he's always supported me no matter what I try to do. Even though sometimes I don't think he's 100% sure, he still just kind of lets me figure things out. He's the best dad. He works so hard to take care of me and our boys. A little bit more about him. He's the biggest Michigan football fan. He loves poker, video games, and Tammy knows this, quoting movies. He does that quite a bit. He's an only child, but he learned to fit in with the crazy family I brought him into. He's an amazing friend. He's a person who loves to pay it forward and usually is our Nathan's Ninja's voice. So I really wanted to have him on either to talk about his perspective on our son's diagnosis or whatever else was on his mind. So welcome, Ryan.
Hello, happy to be here to kick off the new year.
Yay. Do you think I missed anything? Because I always tell my guests to say more about themselves. So I'll let you say something if I missed anything.
I think you covered it pretty well. I think you know me good.
Just a little bit. Well, yay. We're happy to have you here. And yeah, I may have strong armed you just a little bit to be on, but we have to start with men somewhere. And I knew you would jump on. So thank you. Generally, we jump right into kind of anybody's story, whatever they want to share. We have learned that people have so much to tell us, either stories about their families, health related. Sometimes it's work. Sometimes it's I moved from this job to another and the perspective that they've gained from that. I gave you some thoughts, but as Tammy and I always tell our guests, there's really no structure. I don't want to force you to talk about anything. I want it to be whatever's on your heart and on your mind. As you know, the podcast is when people thought they were on one particular path and then recognized that they needed to pivot and what that looked like and what they learned from it. So I'm just going to let you talk and you can go in whatever direction you want to go in.
Giving me free rein on the mic, that's dangerous, you know that. Obviously, Nathan's diagnosis is, one of the biggest events in our life, but there's a lot of things that came before that and set it up and kind of set the person who I am and kind of why I am the way I am, right? So as you said, growing up, only child, very small family on my side. I was used to small Christmases, small events and gatherings. We did not have a big family. So I was a little bit of an introvert. Some people who've known me the longest back into my youngest years, I did have call it a hair growth problem, right? So I don't grow hair normally like most people do. And this isn't a big thing in life. Obviously, it's one of the smallest things you could have to ever worry about. But it was something that I got made fun of as a kid. Like I couldn't grow hair in the normal styles that people did. So it was one of those things, you talk about bullying or getting made fun of as a kid. It's one of those hard things to go through, especially as an only child. It kind of built my internal fortitude and strength, growing up, and had to have a little bit thicker skin, and but it also kind of closed me off to people at times. But what really kind of opened me up was our college days. You basically start fresh in college, right? You get a whole new group of friends or people that you meet and associate with. Join the fraternity, and obviously some of those guys in the fraternity, our friend Tommy Savesky, quoting him, would say, "You have to learn humility. Never forget, you know, changing in a parking lot in front of sorority girls. Now, obviously, not completely down to everything, but changing from a shirt and tie to get ready for a flag football game. And he's like, oh, I'm going to run into the field house and change. Like, no, dude, you can do it here. So those things like, okay, wow. Things like that just kind of makes you kind of come out of your shell, and you have a little bit less fear about things and social interaction. So a lot of that, learning those things through the college days. A lot of people bash fraternities, but U of M Dearborn, as you guys know, there wasn't a lot going on outside of the Greek life there. So it got you to meet people and have some fun stories that we all look back on and laugh at now. But it kind of helped me grow as a person. It just kind of open up and kind of have a bigger family, right? These guys, you call them your brothers now. Some of those guys we've stuck with for years and years. And obviously you two being sorority sisters have made a lifelong friendship along with a lot of your other the girls that you had in your sorority. So things like that are important. Life lessons, as as we now watch Nick navigate through his college years and college soccer. That's a bit of a brotherhood for them, and they're growing up and going through those own same experiences. Past that, after we got married, now I'm part of a larger family, right? So the big fun Italian family. So that has brought me out of my family shell, we'll call it, right? So I now have your sisters are my sisters. I don't call
Sisters,
them
yeah.
sister-in-law, right? They're considered family to me, and same thing as your parents, your aunts and uncles. They're not my blood, but they're my family. So um, that's a change in life for someone who's used to very small atmosphere, growing up in family and being an only child. Now it's the Griswold family Christmas party, right? So always having lots of fun with that. But definitely a change in life that you have to adapt to. And again, these aren't like major like pivot points, which I know you focused on a lot and that we've dealt with later in life, but they're small pivots, right? So it's a adaptation, and getting used to new things, and not staying closed off and learning and growing, which is a very important part of life as you grow up.
For sure. I don't think a lot of our guests have done that kind of reflection where they have gone back like that to try to have us understand why we are the way that we are. So I think that was a really good setup, which is interesting because I thought, how are we going to do the whole tell us more about yourself thing when Tammy and I, especially me, know you very, very well. So I appreciate that. And I think it's important to look back on the things that you've done and who you were and how what you've gone through in life has turned you into the person that you are today. I strongly believe that people can change. I think that there's some things within you that will always remain. In general, I do believe if you go through certain things in life, you can gain different perspective and that can kind of change your outlook and how you perceive things and how you react to them. So it's actually really cool to listen to your side of that, like the things that you went through when you were younger, how it made you who you are today.
I think too, Andrea and Ryan, it's also about the people you meet, right? And he talked a lot about all these new people that came into his life in college, but also your family. And I think that really impacts us throughout life, in our personality. And we do change, people do change, like the whole you've changed and I don't want to be married to you anymore. Well, newsflash, everyone
Everybody
changes,
changes.
right? I
Yeah.
mean, we
Yeah.
evolve. Like it is what
Mhm.
it is.
Mhm.
I mean, that's living. I think our experiences, the people around us, and all of those, the different things do impact us. And it's a natural part of life, really.
Yeah, and I like that word
It's
evolve.
great. Evolve.
That's a
Yeah.
good one. Well, getting back to kind of what I was saying at the beginning, do you wanna focus on something specifically as to when you really had to make a major pivot and what that looked like and how that changed even more your perspective on life? And again, you can of course go back to what happened once our son was diagnosed, or you can talk about anything else. It doesn't have to be that specifically.
Yeah, I think there's two main points I'd like to focus on. One is like you said, Nate's diagnosis, and the second would be when I changed jobs several years ago. So like starting with Nate, we were call it living the American family dream, right? So we had graduated, we both had good jobs. Nick was born, and a couple years later, it's like yes, let's expand our family, and to our knowledge initially, everything is great. We've got a second beautiful boy, no issues. And then when he's 5, we have that bomb dropped on us, right? Is, diagnosis of Duchenne muscular dystrophy. And I mean, obviously, I don't know if you can pick a bigger pivot or roadblock or change of direction, whatever you want to call it, than having to deal with a major medical diagnosis like that. So everything that we had planned in one path for as a family, it just took a different direction. And we always said like the hardest thing when Nate was diagnosed was there was so much dwelling on like what does the future hold? What's going to happen in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? Like there was so much unknown, everything you read about with the diagnosis itself, the medical advancements, the trials and drugs that are out there to try and help them. Like it was, I'm sure you've talked about, just completely overwhelming. And you can bury yourself and just keep digging a hole and not get out of it if you focus too much on what's out of your control and what the future might hold. So that's when we changed our mentality, right? And we said, let's just focus on today. Let's get to tomorrow. So what does tomorrow hold? What does this weekend hold? What can we control in the next couple of days? Because otherwise you're just, like I said, you'll bury yourself with the worry of the future. Probably our hardest point was after that first meeting at U of M with the neurology team, and they're just like, okay, go home. I'm like, what do you mean go home? Like, what's our next step? What do we have to do? And they're like, just go home. We'll see you in 6 months, or we'll see you in a year for the next follow up. And you're like, 6 months, a year? Like, no, it's not right, right? So it gave us a direction after that, where we wanted to find an organization to support or help guide our path, right, our road for Nate and what's going to be best for him. And I think in the beginning there was a lot of, well, life's just keep going as it is. Like he didn't need a lot in that first year. He was still walking. He was still participating in everything he should have at school and even some recreational sports. So we had to reset our mind, and again, going back to not worrying about the future, not worrying about a wheelchair or house modifications and all that stuff, because that was, as we look at it now, it's 10 years later, and that's the stuff we've had to worry about. So if we would have dwelled on that 10 years ago, we might not have made it through those days, right? It could have spiraled out of control and been a mess. But I think that mentality was very important for us to keep focused on one day at a time. And I think that's for anybody, with whether it's a condition that you have yourself or a family member. You do what you can to get through today and worry about tomorrow when it gets here.
That's interesting that I mean, gosh, looking back on those days, it's interesting that you and I both pretty quickly had the same mentality. I don't think you had to persuade me to do one thing, and I don't think I had to persuade you. I think we both went in the same direction, which I don't think you see all the time. And it's looking back surprises me because we're such different people. I do think we have dealt with things differently or expressed and coped with things differently, but it's crazy to think that we both kind of accepted that one day at a time
Mm.
mentality right away.
But we also had we had some tough times in the beginning there where we each had complete breakdowns, right? Where someone did focus on too much in the future and started worrying about things, and it was that emotional breakdown where you curl up in a ball and cry, right? And it's like, luckily we didn't both do that at the same time. One was always there to bring the other one back up. And that's, I think, when we realized that, is like, we can't keep doing this. You'd have a tough day or something happened, or you would be really, really down and crying and upset about everything that was going on. And I picked you up and, got you back to, not, don't call it a happy place, but right, it was
Yeah.
this is how we're going to do this. We can't do this. We have to be strong for him. We have to be strong for each other. And then, let's say I was outside, like, playing. These were the hardest times for me, is when I would be out playing with him, right? Like, he'd want to play baseball or soccer, and he couldn't do it like the other kids were doing it, or he couldn't do it like his brother was doing it, or he'd fall down or something, or he would show frustration, and that's what would, like, break me down, because I'm like, it's my boy who's supposed to play sports, right? Like, I had these visions of me, him, and Nick doing baseball or golf or soccer together, or like playing foursome of golf with my dad, which, me and Nick have gone and played golf with him, but like Nate can't. So, those are the things that hurt me the most. And that's when I would get the most upset. And then you would pick me up and be like, doesn't matter, he's still special, he's amazing, he's going to have a different path, we'll find something different for him. He'll, even if he didn't have Duchenne, maybe he wouldn't be a sports kid, right? Because there's kids that are into computers and robots and science and art and music. So there's always a path, right? So just because you can't use your muscles as much doesn't mean there's something you can't be great at. And that's like the mentality that we had to learn. And so that's what you had to teach me and pick me up and not let me go into that downward spiral. And so I think that's, after we each had a couple of those meltdowns, right? And we're emotionally hurt, right? So that's when I think we both talked to each other and we had that sit down and said, look, we can't do this. It's not good for our health, our mental health, our physical health. It's not good for Nate. It's not good for Nick, because we still have to be there for him and everything he needs. So that's when I think we decided, like, one day at a time, what's tomorrow, right? So I think that's an important message for anybody out there that's going through any kind of a struggle.
Yeah, I agreed fully. And that's interesting perspective. When I thought about, I always say Tammy and I have a list of people that we want to have on this program. And you've always been on it. I knew in my mind you were going to be the first guy that we had on. Um, and I told her that not that we haven't talked about it, but it's good to, in this format, get your perspective and hear your side of things. And I don't want to turn this around about me, but I would be interested to hear more of your thoughts on what our life looked like. So you said some great things about how we got through the early days, and I'm very grateful and happy that we grew together. We evolved together through all of that. But I would like to hear your perspective on the changes that went on with our lifestyle. Like when I said, I can't work in an office anymore, we were in a trial. We were traveling to Chicago from the Ann Arbor area in Michigan every week. And I was at a job that understood, but I fell into the corporate rules where you had to take all of your vacation first. And there were all these rules. And I thought, geez, my vacation is going to be in Chicago and nowhere else. And I remember saying, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do something different. When I bring those things to you, how do you feel about all of that and how that changed for us?
Well, after Nate's diagnosis, right? Like, your perspective on life changed. A lot of things that were important didn't matter as much anymore, right? So material things, like, I don't know, that's tough for me to say because I love gadgets, I love things, right?
That's true.
Um, but they weren't the primary anymore. Like, our whole focus then was what is best for Nate, what's going to make his life the best possible scenario, less stress. So yes, you got to have money to have things, right, to be able to put food on the table and pay the bills and the rent and electricity. But fortunately, I'd been in a good stable job, right? So Ford Direct had treated me well. been there for, at that point, what he was diagnosed in 2015. So, I mean, I was 15 years into a company and I had advanced. We both had gotten our master's degree. So from that perspective, we were in a good financial stable situation. We talked about it. We sat down and did the math, right? And said, okay, if Andrea's salary goes away, what do we look like? So yeah, we had to sacrifice some things. We didn't go on luxurious vacations, and we dialed back on some other extra spending, but we made it work. And once we saw that life was better, right, for you to be able to have that time and be his caregiver, he's our most important thing to take care of, right? So we didn't want to have that fully in the hands of somebody else. So it was very important for us, for you to be there for him, for doctor's appointments, for those Chicago trips. I was able, luckily, my job was nice and flexible too, where they gave me that day off occasionally so I could make the trip and relieve some pressure on you, because we know the couple times each of us did it 2 or 3 weeks in a row, man, that third week was rough on you. Where every other week, that when we were able to alternate, it was like almost refreshing to come back and be able to have that time with him at the hospital and in the car. But it's just one of those things, like, you just have to come together for the betterment of the family and understand, like, we're a team, right? All four of us. What's best for our family? What do we have to do? So we were fortunate that, like I said, my job was doing well, and we're able to stay stable in that situation.
Do you feel a lot of pressure being in that role?
Yeah, I mean, I think anybody that does. So there's lots of families where I think where there's one person that works. Let's say if you have 4 or 5 kids, right? So the people who have, let's say someone has twins, they have another kid later, they have 4 or 5 young ones. Try to put 5 kids through daycare. I mean, that at a certain point for some people, and this is like even without any medical impact, right? Like, there's people who stay at home just because they can't afford to work, because putting that many kids in daycare or whatever it might be, it doesn't make any sense. And someone has to choose to be I hate the term breadwinner, right? But someone is the one that's the primary worker and someone's the caregiver. And there's no less importance just because someone doesn't have a job, right? Like, you're doing a huge important role. And I tell you that all the time. Like, you can't put a price on what you do to take care of our family. So that's where you got to, like, take your focus away from monetary things and say, this is the right thing to do for our family to make sure that we are taken care of the best way possible.
Are you saying I don't always listen to what you tell me?
You never listen to me. I always tell you how valuable you are and how much you do for our family and how amazing you are, but it's probably tough because you say, oh, well, you have to say that. No, I don't.
It's true. You don't
Because
have to, but you had to on this podcast.
no,
Thank you.
but that's an important thing of marriage and partnership, right? You have to be honest with each other. And I always told you, like, if we're in a situation that something is becoming problematic, then we should be able to talk about that. And that's an important part of marriage, is communication.
That's true. So this is also a marriage therapy
Yeah.
session. Tammy, any thoughts? Here I go. This is when I put her on the spot.
It's just been it's cool to hear from Ryan's mouth, like, his perspective on
Mhm.
this, and from the outside, we see it, and I love that you said you guys each have a role in the family. Everybody has a role in the family, and having a traditional job, it doesn't matter, right? If all the pieces are there, and Andrea has a non-traditional job or a role that's different than what a lot of people might see as one part of a partnership, right?
Mhm.
And a little bit of the elephant in the room in a situation that you guys are in is that people don't stay together because they can't find a compromise. They can't find their path together anymore because everything's turned upside down. But hearing that early on, of course, everybody's going to have their moments and their struggles to get past denial and facing what the future and the new path is going to be. And you guys were able to support each other through that. I mean, I think it just goes to show, if you look at the statistics of families in this, a lot of people don't stay together. So bravo to you guys.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
thank you. That's a good perspective. So I want to go back. You had said at the beginning that, you want to talk a little bit about Nathan and the diagnosis and your perspective. And I knew you would have good things to say about it. Like I said, you're always the voice at our Nathan's Ninjas, our nonprofit events, and you share all that's going on with him and what we've been through. So I knew that you would be able to put it into a good story here. But you also mentioned your job. So we could switch gears and go in that direction if you wanted to.
Sure. Yeah, so as I mentioned, it came out of college and I started at a company called Ford Direct. It was a joint venture between Ford and Steelers. When I took the job, it was just getting started as like a small joint venture. We didn't even know if the company was going to make it, but that was in, February of '01. We weren't even married yet. So at that time, like, sure, take whatever risk you want on jobs, right? We were just starting out. And if it works, great. If not, find something new. As a lot of young people do as they're exploring their career path. Well, as I mentioned, like it progressed. I was there for 19 years. I had gotten my master's degree. I worked my way up. I was doing great. But as things always happen, places change. The culture changed. Some people that I had been there a long time with left. But then a new opportunity came, and was it mid 2019? For some of our former employees, who one of our former executives started her own agency, and another previous coworker had gone over there, and they started talking to me and asking me if I would be interested in joining the team. And at that point, my mentality is I need to be safe. I need to protect income, and especially medical benefits, right? So I mean, that's actually one of our number one concerns is a good medical program, which Ford Direct had. And it was scary to consider leaving that, because it was for another kind of a smaller startup opportunity, but it was with some people that I knew and trusted. And I remember sitting down and having talk with you, and you said, why not take the risk? Like, you never take risk, like when it comes to work, right?
And I always do. Yeah.
And you said, yeah, you go, look at me. I had a new job every 2 or 3 years. She goes, I'm used to jumping jobs. It's fine. She goes, it'll be all work out. And if it doesn't work out, then you'll find something new. That's, you're good. But that was the hardest thing for me. Like, I don't generally like change. Stability is what I like, and especially in that situation for our family, we had stable income and stable benefits. We had a lot of talk about it, right? So there was lots of back and forth, but we made that decision, and that was one of my biggest life decisions, right? Was to leave that job voluntarily and take this risk for the new one. Happy to say that it's now near 5 years later, and our company is growing. It's expanded every year. It was especially scary doing that right before COVID hits, right? So, I mean, I start the new job in July of 2019, and COVID hits 8 months later, and we're still trying to launch and grow this company. And amazingly, we were successful, and the company grew actually through the tough COVID years. I've been fortunate that when we started, we were in a small office and there was only a handful of us. And since we've expanded and COVID forced everybody to work from home, the company grew so much that we won't fit in the office that we had originally. And now we have people from all over the country. So most of us are 100% remote workers, which has been a secondary benefit for the family, right? So it's like, I can help Nathan in the morning during the summers, getting him in and out of his wheelchair and his bed. Doctor's appointments, you're more flexible to run out and beat an appointment, come back and, work at night to make up, but it's not like that traditional 9 to 5. So it's ended up being a benefit for us. The risk ended up working, but it was probably one of the it was one of the most stressful decisions I've ever had to make when it comes to that. Because as you said, like, I'm in that position that do I feel that weight of the breadwinner, or the main income for the family. And yeah, I'm like, oh, if this doesn't work out, what are we gonna do, right? I'm thankful it all worked out.
Yeah. I don't know. I just think everything I used to say when he was first diagnosed, when people said everything happens for a reason, I hated that and used to get really mad at people that would say that. But now I look at it a little differently, and I do think there's a reason and there's a path. And I am a little more into the spiritual side than you are, so we don't often speak about all of that, but I just think that God has a plan and a path, and I think going through everything with Nathan's diagnosis has just heightened that for me. At first, I had some emotions around everything that happened to him. There really is no reason why a child is diagnosed with something like that, but there are paths for each of us, and I just strongly believe that it'll all come together and it'll all work out. And I've also learned through all of this that you figure things out. Parents, people, they'll say, how did you do that? And how did that feel? And wow, you're so strong and you can do this and you can do that. And it's like, you just figure it out, whether it be with your children and your family or with your husband or with your work or whatever. I just think we're strong enough to figure things out and make them work the best that we possibly can. So I don't know. I just never was worried. And I'm still to this day, you get frustrated with work. Everybody gets frustrated with work. If anything were to happen, I just know that you would find something else. We would find something else. I would figure something out and we would get through it. Especially now, all these years later, I know that we're strong enough to do it together. Well, geez, we talked about a lot. I think they're related, though. I do think we did a good job bringing them together and showing how your perspective brought you to be the person you are today. And I know we're very grateful for you, the family here. And Tammy and I are very grateful that you shared your perspective. All of our listeners have heard me talk about Nathan and the diagnosis and what we've done quite a few times. So it's really, really cool to get your perspective. What do you think about should we have more men on this podcast?
Definitely.
Good. So start thinking of your friends that you think would also like to
Yeah.
share a story. I think everybody has a story to tell for sure.
So one other thing I forgot to mention it, like earlier when I was talking about kind of my perspective and mentality and how things have changed, um, is seeing how amazing people can be, right? So the support network that I want to say built, but has rallied around us, right? All of our coworkers, families, friends, neighbors, sports families, whether it be club soccer, high school soccer, all these people that we've met, they're the first to jump up and be a part of our golf outing, our 5K walk. Always asking what they can do for Nate, how they can help him. It's just amazing to see the community to support and help. And you see it all over the country. And it's a shame that there's not news like this that's shared more, right? It happens every day. And it was just amazing for us. And I know it was hard for you to accept because you're a giving person, right? So it's hard for you to accept um, from others who are wanting to give and support. And we've always said, our biggest statement at our events is we're not special, right? We're just dealing with something that we didn't choose, and that anybody else says, I don't know how you could do that, I don't know how you do this, I don't know, you're amazing people. And it's like, no, we're not. We're just regular people who had something thrown at us, right? And that they would be the same. Like
Hmm.
everybody would have that strength to step up and do what they have to do for their child or their family. So um, I think a lot of people need to realize that is that they've got that same strength, they've got that same ability to do that. It's just they just haven't been faced with it yet. Potentially, they may never will, but they may in the future. But our community has been absolutely unbelievable, and getting that kind of love and support from people, it's made me want to give back. So when there are opportunities, when we've said, we would be there to stand right next to anybody else who had a diagnosis or a family emergency or whatever it might be, to give back to their charity or to support anybody. On top of that, it's kind of one of my favorite things is, what we call random acts of kindness, right? I always say that makes the world a better place. So something as little as buying the coffee for someone behind you in a drive-through line, or their, McDonald's meal or whatever it might be, or um, my favorite is a couple times, we've been in restaurants and I see a young couple who looks like they're maybe on a first or second date, and I have their waitress come over and I buy their dinner for them. And you see their reaction. It's it's just heartwarming. There should be more of that because they're completely surprised. They're like, "Who? Why would some random person buy their dinner for them? It's 40 or $50 out of my pocket. I don't care. To try and make the world a better place." So
Yeah, I'm glad you shared that. That's kind of what I was getting at the beginning when I said that you like to pay it forward. So I'm glad that you added that part in. I do see that from you a lot, and it has come from what you've been through, just recognizing how so many people have done so much to support us. I remember in the early days, people constantly asked, "What can we do? What does Nathan need? What does Nathan need?" And you and I would, more so me, because you're right, I get really worried about that. I would say, "No, nothing. We're good. We're good." And it really took strength and different perspective for us to say, wait a minute, people really want to share, they want to help, so you have to accept it. You're actually hurting their feelings by not accepting it. We've learned to really just be very grateful for all that we've gotten from others. And then through the years, even now, they'll say, okay, we want to do everything he needs first. And that goes into so far all of the things we've done to our house, but latest was getting the elevator, which he had a couple of friends over last night and he was able to hang out downstairs with them. It's the man cave. It's where all the big TV is and all of the games and shuffleboard and pool, and he got to go down there and not sit up here with his parents staring at him and hang out with his buddies. So things like that are just so important and so meaningful to us. And it's kind of like during the Thanksgiving week, I shared on the podcast, I just spoke and I just talked about how much I value everybody. So I'm really glad that you brought that in as well. I was going to say that we don't tell people exactly what to say, what story to share. Like I keep saying, we don't have a script, but we do have some questions that we kind of want to go through. And generally we get there, but we always ask, what are some things that you've learned and what pieces of advice would you give to somebody else? I think you've kind of already went through that, but are there other things that we missed that you might want to share about, if someone else were to go through something like this or some other kind of stress, or what type of advice would you give?
I think the biggest thing is that if you are in a relationship or you're married, you have to do it as a team. You can't take the weight of the world on yourself. You need to have someone there with you. You need to have someone to talk to. You need to make decisions together, and that's a way to get through it. You have to rely on your network. So whether it be your spouse or your partner or your boyfriend, girlfriend, whoever it is, or a family member, everybody should have a network around them, right? I don't believe anybody's completely alone, right? So lean on the people that are there because they will be there for you. It's not just empty words when someone says, "Let me know if you need anything. I'm here to help." So use your support network. It'll get you through the tough times. And whoever that network is, they'll be there for you, and it'll make them feel good to help you. So it's like you're helping each other. And then the other one, it goes back to the point I said earlier, is you take the battle one day at a time. Don't dwell on what the future potentially holds because you don't know. Especially if there's something that's years away potentially. You have no idea what's going to happen a year from now, let alone 5 years from now. So face the challenge that's in front of you today and get through it.
That's great. Is there anything that you would change knowing what you know now?
Um, Other than investing in Amazon, Google, and Tesla heavier 10, 15 years ago, no. I mean,
No.
it's tough because you shouldn't look back, right? It's always catch 22. Like it's easy to look back right now and say, "Oh, I should have done that," right? But at the time, you made your decision based on the information you had or the feelings you had. So, just as much as you can't dwell on the future, you can't dwell on the past, right? I mean, nobody's perfect. People make mistakes and it's going to happen. So, yeah, maybe you make the wrong decision. You made the decision that you thought was best at the time. So, you can't beat yourself up about something that happened in the past.
It's another thing that you tell me a lot, so it's good for me to hear again and for all of our listeners for sure. Wow. Well, I really liked everything that you shared. I loved the perspective. I loved having a guy on the show. I do think we tend to kind of talk to people that are our same age and our same gender because we can relate to them so much. But it's really good to have a man's perspective for sure on this podcast. So this is not a women's podcast. It's share your story, times that you've had to pivot and what that looked like. So thank you for being the first man and for being part of this podcast and for letting me pretty much tell you you're on, here's the time, go to your computer, make it happen. I appreciate that. I think you do always go along with my ideas, whether they be good or bad. But hey, you can't look on the past and regret. So all my ideas were good at the time anyway. But thank you for being on here for sure. I'm really excited to share this and just continue to expand what we're trying to do with the show and the stories that we are trying to share with others. So thank you again for being part of it and for supporting every little idea that I have.
Thank you. Love
Yeah.
you.
Love you too. Thank you for joining us for the Show Me the Way podcast. We truly appreciate you tuning in to today's episode about overcoming adversity and finding your path. We hope it brought you new insights, empowered you with perspective, and inspired you to find joy in your journey. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and share it with someone who could use a little motivation. Until next time, keep seeking the light and showing the way.